The night before the world collapses is always quiet. Somewhere, a man is awake, listening to a future no one else believes in. He knows the disaster will come, not because he wants it to, but because it already lives in his mind. If you choose to remain here, to walk slowly into that silence and hear the warnings history tried to ignore, then subscribe to us. This is not a story about victory, but about being right when no one wants to listen. He is no longer invited to the center of things. Once, his voice filled chambers. Now it echoes faintly, tolerated rather than welcomed. Winston Churchill moves through Parliament like a ghost that remembers being alive. Faces turn polite when he enters, then tighten with relief when he leaves. They say he belongs to another age. They say he is obsessed, theatrical, dangerous. They say the world has changed and that he has not. Churchill knows this tone well, the soft dismissal, the smiles sharpened with embarrassment. It is the sound a society makes when it does not want to imagine the worst. He sits on the fringes of power now, listening to speeches polished smooth by optimism. Peace is discussed as if it were permanent. Agreements are signed with trembling hands and celebrated as salvation. And all the while, he feels the ground shifting beneath their words. At night, he returns to his rooms, heavy with unslept hours. Cigarette smoke coils against the ceiling like a thought that refuses to disperse. Papers are stacked everywhere. Maps, reports, intelligence briefings ignored by those who matter. He reads them anyway, again and again. Numbers of aircraft, troop movements, rearmament hidden behind smiles. Each page is a whisper of what is coming. He pours a drink, not to escape the future, but to steady himself against it. There is a particular cruelty in seeing disaster clearly while being denied the power to prevent it. It breeds a private madness. Churchill feels it pressing in on him during long walks, during meals where conversation feels unreal, during speeches delivered to half-empty rooms. He speaks of danger and hears his own words fall flat, as if absorbed by thick carpet. The room nods politely. The room does not listen. They laugh sometimes, quietly. They call him alarmist. They remind him of past mistakes, of failed campaigns and unpopular stances. They say the public wants calm, not prophecy. And Churchill, for all his bluster, feels the sting of that laughter more deeply than he lets on. Pride is a fragile thing when stripped of relevance. Still, he cannot stop. Silence would be a betrayal, not of his career, but of his conscience. He writes late into the night, sentences marching across the page with urgency and restraint. He chooses words carefully, knowing too much fire will doom them, too little will dilute them. He is no longer speaking to crowds. He is pleading with time itself, hoping that repetition might pierce denial. Outside, clocks continue their indifferent ticking. The world prefers sleep. There are moments, brief, dangerous ones, when doubt creeps in, when he wonders if age has sharpened his fears beyond reason, when the solitude becomes suffocating, when he imagines history passing him by, leaving him remembered only as a relic of an anxious past. These thoughts arrive unannounced, usually after midnight, when even conviction grows tired. But then, another report arrives. Another confirmation. Another quiet proof that the storm is not imagined. Churchill stands at a window one evening, looking out over the city. Lights glow softly. Lives unfold, unaware. Somewhere beyond the horizon, forces are gathering with mechanical patience. He thinks of how civilizations collapse, not with screams, but with agreements, with compromises signed in good faith, with leaders convincing themselves that restraint will be reciprocated. He feels something close to grief, not for what has already been lost, but for what soon will be. In public, he maintains his posture, defiant, articulate, unwavering. In private, the weight grows heavier. To be ignored is one thing. To be ignored while correct is another. It isolates a man from his own time. Churchill begins to feel like a witness rather than a participant, watching history rehearse a tragedy he has already seen in his mind. The irony does not escape him. Should disaster come, they will remember his words. But memory is a poor substitute for prevention. Weeks pass, months. The air thickens with rumors no one names aloud. Conversations shift, almost imperceptibly, from optimism to unease. Yet still, nothing changes. Leadership clings to normalcy like a lifeboat that hasn't yet touched water. Churchill continues to speak, though each speech feels like shouting into fog. And then, slowly, subtly, something begins to fracture. Not a collapse. Not yet. Just hesitation. Just the first tremor of fear creeping into voices that once sounded certain. Questions begin to replace assurances. Doors that were once closed now open a fraction wider. Churchill senses it before it is visible. The moment when denial starts to exhaust itself. He does not feel triumph, only dread. Because if they are finally listening, it means time has nearly run out. One evening, as he folds away another set of notes, a thought settles in his chest with unsettling clarity. The world will come for him, not because it believes in him, but because it has no one else left. And when that moment arrives, it will not be a victory. It will be an admission of failure. Churchill looks again into the dark beyond the glass. Somewhere, decisions are being delayed for the last time. Somewhere, history is inhaling before it speaks. And soon, very soon, the unwanted man will be needed. They do not summon him with ceremony. There is no flourish, no apology for the years of dismissal. The call arrives heavy with urgency, stripped of pride. A voice on the other end speaks carefully, as if afraid the words themselves might shatter. The world has changed. The assumptions have collapsed. And suddenly, the man they once endured has become the man they require. Winston Churchill understands the meaning immediately. He has been expecting this moment for so long that it feels almost unreal when it finally arrives. Not triumph, not vindication, only a tightening in the chest, a quiet recognition. Now it is too late to be gentle. He steps into power through a narrow door, pushed forward by necessity rather than belief. The corridors feel smaller than he remembered, the air heavier. Faces that once looked away now study him with anxious intensity, searching for certainty he does not entirely possess. They want assurance. They want miracles. They want him to carry what they no longer can. Outside these walls, the world is already burning. Churchill takes his seat amid disarray, alliances fraying, maps bleeding red, conversations whispered in corners. The language has changed. Where once there were promises, there are now calculations. Where hope once stood, survival has taken its place. He listens, absorbing the scale of collapse with grim focus. This is not the war he warned of in theory. This is the war as it truly is. Merciless, accelerating, uninterested in moral clarity. That night, alone again, he feels the weight descend fully for the first time. Leadership does not feel like command. It feels like exposure. Every doubt is amplified. Every decision echoes forward into unknown consequences. He pours a drink and does not savor it. Sleep does not come easily. When it does, it brings no rest. Morning returns him to rooms thick with argument. Some speak of negotiation, of bending, yielding, surviving through concession. Their voices are measured, rational, terrified. Churchill listens without interruption. He understands fear. He understands the temptation of surrender dressed as prudence. But beneath their proposals, he hears something else. The sound of a future shrinking. When he speaks, the room stills. He does not promise safety. He does not pretend the path ahead is merciful. His words are blunt, carved rather than polished. He speaks of endurance, of resolve sharpened by clarity rather than comfort. The language unsettles them. It is not the reassurance they hoped for, but it is unmistakably alive. Beyond the walls, the public senses the shift. Sirens replace silence. Letters replace rumors. Families listen to the radio with held breath. And into this collective fear, Churchill's voice enters, not as a lullaby, but as a challenge. He speaks not to soothe, but to awaken. His sentences move like footsteps in the dark, deliberate, steady, refusing to retreat. Privately, the cost mounts. Each report is a ledger of lives. Each decision closes one door while opening another that leads deeper into uncertainty. He feels the loneliness he once feared, but magnified now by responsibility. There is no one to share the burden with. Agreement is rare, certainty non-existent. He must decide anyway. There are moments, brief, dangerous ones, when the old doubt returns, when exhaustion makes every option feel flawed, when the knowledge that history is watching becomes suffocating. He wonders, in the quiet between meetings, whether his defiance will save his country or doom it more thoroughly. The question has no answer that brings peace, yet the machine of war does not wait for reflection. News arrives faster now. Setbacks, retreats, losses described with clinical restraint. He absorbs them without flinching, but each leaves its mark. His body feels older, his nights grow shorter. He survives on resolve and habit, on the strange clarity that comes when there is no alternative. Publicly, he becomes something harder than flesh, a symbol sharpened by repetition. The cigar, the cadence, the unyielding stare. People cling to these images as proof that resistance has a face. Few see the man beneath, the one who rereads reports at dawn, who measures sentences against possible annihilation, who knows that confidence, once cracked, cannot be repaired. And still, slowly, something shifts. Not victory, not relief, but resistance that holds. A line that does not break. Each small survival feels monumental. Each day endured feels like defiance carved from air. Churchill senses the change before it is declared. The enemy advances, but not unchecked. Time, precious, brutal time, is being bought at unimaginable cost. He understands the paradox with aching clarity. To inspire hope, he must never appear to need it himself. One evening, as he prepares another address, he pauses over a single line. The words are simple, almost severe. He knows they will be remembered. He also knows they commit him fully to a path that cannot be softened later by regret. He sets the paper down and stares into the silence. If he is wrong now, there will be no one left to blame. And if he is right, the price will be counted in years stolen from the living. He straightens, gathers the pages, and steps toward the light, aware with quiet certainty that the most dangerous part of the journey has only just begun. The war does not end with a single sound. It thins like a fever breaking, not all at once, but unevenly, leaving weakness in its wake. By the time the guns finally fall silent, Winston Churchill feels older than the years he has lived. Victory arrives without ceremony inside him. No surge of triumph, no release, only the slow realization that the thing he feared most has passed, and something else, less visible, more personal, has begun. The crowds gather, of course, they always do. Streets fill with voices and movement, flags lifted like prayers finally answered. Faces shine with relief, with disbelief, with a hunger for normal life that borders on desperation. Churchill watches from a distance, present but apart. He knows this joy is real. He also knows it does not belong to him. He has lived too long inside catastrophe to step easily into celebration. In the days that follow, the rhythm of life shifts again. Meetings no longer pulse with urgency. Decisions slow. The future, Once a narrow tunnel begins to widen, uncertain, negotiable, open to interpretation. People speak of rebuilding, of forgetting, of moving on. Churchill listens, nodding when required, sensing the familiar unease return. Peace, he understands, is another kind of battlefield, quieter, more treacherous. The public image remains fixed, the unbreakable leader, the voice that refused surrender, the man who stood when others wavered. But images, once useful, quickly grow heavy. They do not age well. They do not adapt. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, he feels the attention drifting elsewhere. New faces, new hopes, new promises untethered from memory. When the election comes, it does not feel cruel. That is what surprises him most. There is no outrage in the loss, only a gentle turning away. Gratitude expressed in past tense, respect framed as farewell. The nation thanks him sincerely, then chooses something different. Churchill accepts it outwardly with composure. Inwardly, the silence is deafening. Once again, he is unnecessary. He returns to quieter days, to rooms no longer burdened with the weight of immediate annihilation. The relief should be palpable. Instead, he feels a hollowness he cannot easily name. For years, his purpose was unmistakable. Survival demanded him. History pressed him into service. Now, time loosens its grip, and with it, the clarity that once justified every sacrifice. He writes, he paints, he remembers. Memory becomes both companion and adversary. There are moments of pride, yes, undeniably. Moments when he allows himself to acknowledge that the line held, that collapse was not inevitable. But pride is fragile when unshared. And remembrance, when revisited too often, sharpens regret alongside accomplishment. At night, he sometimes hears echoes, not of bombs, but of voices, sentences spoken into the void, decisions made alone, lives altered irrevocably. He wonders about the men who did not return, about the futures that ended so others could resume theirs. Leadership, he realizes, leaves behind a peculiar loneliness. No one else fully understands what it cost. History begins its work quickly, simplifying, polishing, turning complexity into narrative. The man becomes a chapter. The warnings become speeches. The fear becomes courage, neatly packaged for remembrance. Churchill watches this transformation with quiet detachment. He knows what is being lost in the process, but also why it must happen. Societies cannot live inside nuance forever. Still, there is a private sorrow in being remembered incompletely. He walks through gardens, slower now. The air feels gentler. Time stretches without urgency. And in these moments, he reflects, not on the war alone, but on the strange rhythm of usefulness. How a life can be dismissed, then demanded, then set aside again. How destiny does not arrive with fairness, only with timing. Churchill understands at last the paradox that defined him. He was most essential when least wanted, and least wanted when most essential had passed. There is no bitterness left in this understanding, only a calm acceptance. He had been heard when it mattered, not because the world trusted him, but because it had exhausted its illusions. And perhaps that is how history always works, not by rewarding foresight, but by punishing denial until truth has no rival left. In the end, he does not measure his life by applause or office or permanence. He measures it by resistance, by the refusal to remain silent when silence was safer, by the choice to stand apart, alone if necessary, and speak into the dark. And as time continues its quiet erasure, softening edges, forgetting costs, turning men into monuments, one truth remains, heavy and unadorned. Sometimes the fate of millions rests not in being loved, but in being willing to endure being unwanted.